Hi, you're watching NewsX. My name is Vineet Malhotra. As many as 33 Chinese firms and institutes have been added to an economic blacklist in an effort to crack down on companies that help Beijing spy on its minority communities or for their alleged ties to the Chinese military. The US Commerce Department's move has come as an effort by the Trump administration to crack down on China a day after Beijing unveiled its plans to impose the national security law on Hong Kong. And what does this mean for the world? And what kind of an implication can this have in the larger perspective? We'll discuss this with our esteemed panelists. And I have Professor Swan Singh, foreign policy expert, on the broadcast with me. Arjun Hardas, foreign affairs expert, also with us on the broadcast. Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian. Manish Pandya, editor of ITV, and Sumit Peer, political analyst. Professor Nalapat, let me start by asking you that Trump is making all these haphazard moves, but is this something which is going to have a backlash in the United States? When it comes to the trade friction between the United States and China, as we have gotten to see it being escalated in the last few weeks?
Well, I'd like to say that the Trump administration adopted a very clear and scientific policy towards China. It's much more determined than any previous administration and is based on the realization that after decades in which American technology, European technologies have in fact facilitated the growth of China as the world's second biggest economy, it will be a very short time before Chinese companies start overtaking European and American companies in high technology. We've already seen that in 5G, where Huawei is far and away the market leader in terms of cost and quality. So what is happening now is an effort to block any further access by China to US technologies. But the only question is, has they been bolted after the horse, been closed after the horse is bolted? Because the fact is, the Chinese today are much more technologically advanced than they were even 5 years ago.
Absolutely. And Professor Swan Singh, the United States was responsible, behind putting China in the World Trade Organization as well. And today, it's a bigger technological exporter than the United States is. It's got a share of about 28% vis-a-vis the United States, which stands at 18%. But the big question is, or rather the ironic question is, that Donald Trump has been, posturing in this very aggressive way, trying to punish China for spreading COVID-19 all across the world. But the fact of the matter is, can the United States live without China?
I think I agree with Professor Nalapat, who said that President Trump has been perhaps the most firm in pushing this idea of stopping China's expansion and growth in terms of becoming technology dominating country. In last 10 years, we have seen several technology companies of China emerging as world leaders, and Huawei is a clear case here. And fundamental methodology of Huawei and other Chinese companies, which in olden days was called reverse engineering, has been fundamentally to procure high technology from the developed world and to process it to expand its own level of exports. So we have seen over the last 10 years the quality of Chinese technology going up really and becoming much more competitive. And Donald Trump fundamentally is more of a businessman than a politician. So it's clearly driven by the fact that they want to ensure, as far as they can, though again, Professor Nalapat said it may be an action taken when the horse is really bolted. So we don't know how far they will succeed, but this is a desperate attempt of United States to ensure as much delay and discouragement of Chinese becoming the most dominant players in dispersion and production of technology, fundamentally because United States fully understands that when you dominate world in terms of technology, what things you can do with it, how you can get access to others' processes and data and information by supplying high technology. They suspect Chinese are going to do the same thing, or they are doing the same thing. So that is fundamentally the fear and business competitiveness. It is very little to do with minorities or political issues or any other issues. It's fundamentally pure and simple economic competition for United States, and it is wanting fundamentally to protect its own technology giants.
Okay, Arjun, what do you make of this? The Americans lashing out at China, because some of the companies that are associated with the torture and the exploitation of the minority communities in China are being punished as of now. Do you think these are soft measures that perhaps the United States is taking? They should be going in for something rather more substantial.
No, if they actually plan to follow through with it to its logical end, then it's seen as a measure for human rights or whatever. But then you and I both know is Donald Trump of the United States has never been too concerned about human rights for other countries in their world. It's not even for their own country. I don't know if you've heard of a fellow called Xian Shusen. Okay, most people have not. Most people even in China have not. This man was a China-born American colonel in the U.S. Air Force, the co-founder of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and a space rocket designer. He contributed to America's space program, missile program, the entire space program. He was hauled up in front of in the 50s, in front of the McCarthy era time of that. He's a communist supporter and all that. What he did was he packed up, took blueprints of the entire IRBM rockets, went off to China, handed it over to them. Their entire space program since then, the 50s and 60s, has been thanks to American technology, which they didn't bother to keep an eye on. So that was just the beginning. You look at aerospace engineering. Half the things, most of it, for example, which is high technology, including the F-20s and other aircraft, are more or less copies of American technologies, the F-35, etc. It's not a question of holding off these entities. These entities are the open entities, that they are known as Chinese companies which are registered in the United States, etc. There are so many other people that they have infiltrated over decades into high positions of technology, into technical heads, managers. Every single day there is some story coming out of somebody caught spying for China. These people and they're not just Chinese citizens or Chinese origin people. They could be anybody. There was an Indian caught giving them technology, a Parsi gentleman a few years ago. This is something which is, this kind of a thing is not going to solve anything. Even their aircraft, for example, which have crashed, some of their US Air Force aircraft that have crashed, it has eventually turned out there was Chinese technology which was put in there, which was malfunctioned. So trying to hold off, trying to see that they will not associated with this, that's just an excuse. What has to have been taken has already been taken, and what they want in the future from America or from the West, etc., for example, from Australian computers for the F-35 design, the Australians don't have a high security the way it is expected to be. So it was easy to take from them. So what has already happened has already happened, and it's going to continue. Let's not have any illusions that this kind of measures will stop the flow of technology, illegal flow of technology to China.
Okay, but Sumit, do you think that the idea behind this move is perhaps to punish China? And even if the United States is attempting to do that, do you think it is a prudent measure at this point in time when most economies throughout the world are struggling? And let me remind you, Sumit, that more than 50% of the world's smartphones are produced in China. More than 90% of the world's laptops are produced in China. 70% of the world's air conditioners are produced in China. 58% of the world's shoes are produced and manufactured in China. The world's biggest supplier of the Bible, which is the most sold book in the history of mankind, after Homer's Iliad perhaps, is China.
Correct. Vinny, thank you very much for having on the show. You have to see the political dimensions of it. Now, Trump has an election which is 6 months away, and the death rate in US is unfortunately quite high. So is the infection rate. So he has to be seen something. There are 2 or 3 statements I would like to take a perspective on. The point number 1, he says that he has given $16 billion to farmers in US so that Chinese were after them. He has said that last 10 years, President Obama let Chinese companies flourish because he owned the gates for them in the United States of America. He has accused Joe Biden's son of getting $1.5 billion from Chinese to facilitate Chinese entry into various strategic firms. Now, with all this happening, and with the we know stand of UK and others, which is shaping up, now President Trump is to be seen doing something, because if you look at the technology, we need to look at Huawei. Now, when you put any telecom network, I know from my experience, the ROI is 15 to 20 years. The moment you start blocking their components and you cut the biggest telecom market from them, that is United States. Now, tomorrow, if you have to buy a Huawei, you will think, because you are not sure, will Huawei be able to give you supplies? Will they be able to give you spares? Huawei on record has said, with this chip technology not coming, their their capability to serve networks will be very limited. So now if you have to buy a technology between Alcatel and Huawei, you might pay 20% more and get an Alcatel or get a Cisco rather than a Huawei, because you don't know will Huawei be able to sustain you for 15 years, because 15 years is where your ROI comes. Point number 2, Vineet, when it comes to developing technology, China has these factories called Factory 24, Factory 48. They are the official re-engineering factories funded by the government where they just re-engineer. So their cost of development is very, very low. In a technology business, your 70% of the cost is R&D. Manufacturing doesn't take a lot of money. Look at my iPhone, the PCB is $100. It is sold for, let's say, $2,000. PCB is not difficult, manufacturing is not difficult, but the technology is difficult. But your business is to just re-engineer. Now, it was happening with the US components on all going in my opinion, if you officially announce this, and if you are tomorrow, or I'm going tomorrow to buy a network which has to give me ROI for 15 years, I will have apprehensions, I will have doubts, and with it, you will see, Vineet, if America does it, Europe will follow suit. A lot of countries will follow suit. Somebody has to take the lead, and I think Trump has politically taken the lead. There's a lot of politics also in it, more than economics. They have lost 10 years. So.
You say that Trump has taken the lead, Manish. Trump has taken the lead, although we should also remember that his ability to deal with the COVID-19 virus in his own country has been abjectly exposed. Russia is at 3 lakhs and US is about to touch 2 million people who are afflicted by this deadly virus. This could also be construed, or rather misconstrued, by his supporters as an effort to digress.
Not digress, Vineet. As Professor Nalpat said, I will just add there that it's a master stroke at a time when the entire US media and the liberal Democrats are up on his neck for his poor handling of coronavirus. And he has to buy time till July, till the economic stimulus package starts showing some results. And the people start coming out in the open, in the public.
But he's already trailing to Joe Biden in most states.
No, that's not. That you are going by, according to the latest poll, if you go by the Harvard-Harris poll and all, he has only gone down against Joe Biden 8 points in handling of corona, not in his popular rating.
Correct.
He is still commanding the 48% polls which he had in 2017. And he still plays perfect to the gallery.
I disagree with you, but we'll debate about that a little later. Yeah.
No, because I'm telling you the latest. So that's why this I have already debated, and I'm telling you he has lost to Joe Biden on the handling of. When it comes to handling, these two leaders were judged, and there he definitely lost out to Biden. But in his overall ratings, he has not lost much what he had in 2017. Having said that, it's not that the first time the US has delisted Chinese companies.
Of course.
In 2019 also, Trump tried to do, when he was trying to arm twist China on the trade negotiations, he did almost like 156 to 160 companies the administration made a list of. Perhaps at that time he didn't get so much mileage, because today, in the current conditions, we all know that anything which is happening between China and the US is catching the global eye. We all are part of it and debating. We had not debated it then. And even in 2011 and 2012, the Obama administration had delisted 100 companies. And at that time, the loss to the investors were almost to the tune of 40 billions. So this thing has been going on. There are companies which have come in the garb of corporates and all, because China wants to just push it through. Because when this wave came in 1980s, with China actually started getting the dream of becoming the economic giant. And by the beginning of the 2000s, the entire world was getting in awe with China, and the most gripped was US. You name anything and America will say, oh, you name a project and Americans will just fund it. If it has just one word, China. That you do want to do a field study, you go to China, we will fund you. You want to have a firm in China, we'll do business, you go to China, we will fund it. So the thing is, all those things were happening. At that time, a lot of investments and lawsuits were filed and all in 2013. But having said that, today, Trump has played it perfectly to the gallery. And his gallery is the 48 to 51% vote bank, which keeps. So we have to see in that light when he has actually got the support of across board. Because at this time, the anti-China bloc, which he had formed a month ago, not many had joined him. But today, almost he has got the support of half of the world.
Okay. Okay. Professor Nalapat, even if you forget that Trump has been self-administering hydroxychloroquine. And even if you forget that he did advocate the use of Lysol as as a disinfectant against corona, do you think the measures and the moves that have come against China is perhaps too little in contrast to what he's been saying he's going to do against China?
Well, I'd like to say that I'm sure the Chinese will be hoping and praying, if they do pray, that Joe Biden gets elected. And frankly, Joe Biden is very close to Clinton's. And if Joe Biden fails, it is very likely, Manish could confirm this, that Hillary Clinton herself is likely to step into the race, because the Clintons are extremely powerful in the Democratic Party. They kept Bernie Sanders out. And the Clintons have done a lot for China. They got China into a WTO. They have, in fact, opened the door for Chinese businesses. They've opened the door for US companies, and US companies have made a lot of profit in China, I can tell you. If you look at the Apple products or the other products or the Microsoft or any company that's got a production base in China, well, I can tell you the Chinese keep about 15 to 20%. 80% of the money from that kind of labor and facilities goes back to the US. So the fact is that Trump, why? Because Trump has been very active on China. There's no doubt about it. And the reason is and one of the signs of that is this very serious strategy of the Indo-Pacific. Trump would like to ensure that the United States and its allies keep primacy in the Indo-Pacific. He wants India as part of that process. In fact, without India, I don't believe too many people in America, or in the Pentagon at least, believe the United States can maintain primacy. So what I'm saying, Vineet, this is a fight to the bitter end. The Chinese, in my view, and I've said this in writing, are trying to dethrone the dollar and arrange a reset of the dollar. The Americans are trying to drag the Chinese economy to a very low growth rate in the belief that that will discredit the leadership, discredit the Communist Party, and then create fissures in society. So this is a war which is frankly as serious as the war that was Soviet Union and the US.
All right, absolutely. And Professor Singh, do you think that, including the United States and the world, too much of technology production has been put into China's hands? And perhaps this is a fallout of that trust. It is a fallout of that confidence which was put into China's hands.
You're right. In fact, you yourself gave a lot of statistics of virtual monopoly that China holds in production of so many of the consumer products particularly. And they have moved from where Nalapat said sharing only 15 to 20% of the profits to now increasingly building their own brands. I think that is where the difficulty begins for United States and other developed nations. For instance, Huawei today, it imports about $67 billion annually in terms of procurement it has from world over from other companies. Right. So it has built stakes of several companies in United States who will be losing business when they stop importing, when the Huawei stops importing or is disallowed to import. So the fundamental connection or entanglement that China has built over years with the developed countries to now gradually shifting to building its own brands, shifting to also being outflow of FDI from China to the developed world, that is where it begins to pinch to the developed nations. Otherwise, as long as China was just being the factory and the sweatshop for their technology, it was fine. But I think fundamentally, I think it is also important to understand now that immediate pinch or the trouble that the United States has is from the understanding, including recently April 2020 report of IMF saying United States economy is going to shrink about 6%. China believes and they claim they have already come out of COVID-19 and have started factories churning all the materials again. And they are going to grow much faster. IMF itself believes 1.2% positive growth rate. Chinese claim much more than that. They have not, of course. This year, announced the first time, Chinese have not announced what is the growth rate they're going to achieve this year. But nevertheless, they believe that they will be much faster to bounce back. And I think that is where it begins to pinch developed world led by United States, that China post-COVID-19 will not be just simply able to persuade or do the stealth kind of indirect import of important frontier technologies, but begin to dominate and dictate now. And we can notice some of that parallel things happening already from South China Sea to the Indian waters. And that is what is the immediate trigger for this, other than the fact that it wants to be also, Trump also wants to use it as a diversionary tactics for his failure at the domestic front.
Absolutely. And Arjun, that also brings me to my next question. China throughout this pandemic has been unfettered, unperturbed, as to what the world thinks about it. They've been conducting the space program, they've been conducting nuclear activity, and now they've also, started doing some unsavory stuff in Hong Kong as well. What do you make of that?
Well, they've just, I think, exposed their agenda a little early. There was a plan already in place, and they were told by Deng, it is known for some years, that he had said, hold your plans. Don't expose your plans. Or take your time. Bide your time is what he had already said. Obviously, Xi Jinping has overshot of himself. He was, again, as you remember, just 2 years ago, he was crowned emperor, more or less, by the last session, and he got into his head literally that he's another Mao. But Mao, just to remember, was an abject failure. He didn't do anything for his country in that sense. But the point here is, what he did was consolidate the country, made it into a powerful country. He did everything like that. But as far as the average Aam Aadmi, so to say, it didn't really affect him down to the ground. Deng was the one who changed things on the ground. But this guy thinks himself as one of the Mao, as a supreme power. And with term limits removed, it's going to now how it's going to take it out in the next session is going to be seen, whether there is going to be a replacement for him, whether things are going to change. It's a question of seeing how it goes.
Sumit, do you think that this worsening relationship between the United States and China is also going to have a stifling effect on artificial intelligence and 5G? Something that even India is very keen on implementing.
I think, Vineet, the point here is that, you have to just 2 days back, President Donald Trump make one important statement. He was asked a question, what about Chinese students? Would you allow them to come back to US? Would you stop students coming into strategic things like AI and other universities of US? He said, even if I cut all the ties today, we save $500 billion, $500 billion. Because let's not forget the trade deficit between China and US is $500 billion. So Trump is really, really worried about it. It's a lot of money. And he is knowing that by giving them this money, it is being used in a way against US because China is exerting its muscles. Now, what does President Xi want to be seen himself? He wants to be seen all is good. That is why he's talking to Bangladesh. He's doing these nuclear tests. He's talking of NSA on Hong Kong. He wants to be seen in power. But the fact remains, Vinny, that he is seeing losing ground. And in Chinese ways and in Communist Party and in communism, violence is not something which is not an accepted statecraft. So there are a lot of things which are at stake for a lot of people in China, including Xi Jinping, because this move of coronavirus has really hit back. He thinks he dominates the world. He thinks he controls the world. But Vineet, unfortunately, it's a people's movement. Today, Donald Trump does it because Americans want it. Tomorrow, we are going to do it because Indians want it. Tomorrow, British will do it because Britishers want it. It is not the politician. It's not the media. It's not between you and me. Everybody who has suffered and we are goddamn in our homes, we have lost our livelihoods. We want repatriation. And answering your question on 5G, 5G is the most important technology we need because IoT needs 5G to run, and IoT is going to control in next 10 years 25% of the global GDP. I've written an article on my portal on this long back, and I had predicted the new war is going to be on 5G because whoever controls 5G will control the world's approximately. You're building a bridge on which the 25% of the economic traffic of the world goes. That important is 5G. So by this move, now India will have to really, really think hard about Chinese 5G. If you ask my opinion, do not go for Chinese 5G. Look for options. There are American options. There are some European options which are shaping up. Look for them. They might be a little bit expensive, but you don't have to worry about malwares, spywares, somebody trying to steal your data and all that crap happening, which we know. And this is a very strange thing. We need when Chinese get money, why do they want to dominate the world? Aap kha rahe ho, kama rahe ho, khush raho bhai. What is this global dominance? We are on this earth. Do you think it's a rule of Genghis Khan or Alexander the One? I can conquer the world. Nobody can conquer the world. You be good to your citizens, have a good, healthy life. Ash karo. What is this dominance of the world? Is there something wrong in your head?
Okay,
why do you want to dominate the world?
Only a couple of minutes left in this debate, Manish. Last response from you. Arjun put it very aptly and succinctly that Xi himself, declared himself as the emperor. You think this crisis and this affair between the United States back and forth is going to have any impact on his leadership?
Column also in Sunday Guardian that during this pandemic and the meeting of the party, I think the Chinese, not only the Chinese opposition, even within the party, he is now facing a stiff opposition and criticism. But that criticism is mute still, because it has not come out in the open, and a lot of things are at stake. But one thing is true, that he has not taken the country forward other than just having that dream of making it a superpower and the economic and the political powerhouse countering America's status. That was the dream through which he did the BRI and all, which is at the moment stuck somewhere because there are not many investments coming, and it will be stuck for a couple of years more. So he is facing that, and and this is the worst. And two things which the Chinese are now there is a problem of this Chinese
but
backlash.
Is it going to impact his presidency?
No, the impact, it will, because it will. And in fact, some of the experts said that first of all, okay, the China may not own it, but internally that turmoil has started to happen. The churning has started to happen. And one thing the Chinese have realized, that they have got the biggest criticism, global criticism, and they have made more enemies than friends.
Okay,
absolutely right.
All right, China has been managing to do that since a very long time, but this time they have antagonized, in fact, the entire world.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.